Нуркен, Нуркен. Нуркен, нормально нас слышно? Запись ты на YouTube записываешь, да? Хорошо, все.
Now, 7 o'clock in Almaty. Let's start our conference, is it? Подсоединено все, да? Меня слышно, да? Слышно? Слышно, да? Мгм. Так, если тұратын болса, конференциямды бастай берейік. Сәлеметсіздер ме, құрметті конференция қатысушылары және аса қадірменді қонақтар. Біріккен ұлттар ұйымының академиялық ықпал бағдарламасының тұрақты даму жаһандық хабар ретінде ұйымдастырылып отырған бейбітшілікке арналған сана атты халықаралық онлайн конференциясына қош келдіңіздер. Good part of the day to everyone who joined today's significant event. Excellencies and distinguished participants, I am delighted to welcome all of you to the International Online Conference, Mind for Peace, on behalf of the Global Hub of the United Nations Academical Impact on Sustainability. KAZNU has been carrying out this responsible mission since 2014. We strive to be an active promoter of the United Nations ideas within the scientific and the educational community and cooperate within many United Nations structures. The university is making a great effort to promote for sustainable development goals based on the 10 principles of the academic impact program by offering the academic community to widely use the educational environment as a tool to solve global issues. Today's conference is held within the framework of the decade of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals and is dedicated to the 75th anniversary of the United Nations, the 15th anniversary of the United Nations Alliance of Civilizations, and the 10th anniversary of the United Nations Academic Impact Program launching. The joint and purposeful activity of the world universities in this noble and important cause will allow to consolidate the world academic community, enhance its role in countering new security threats, and create the necessary conditions for promoting the most important value of peace and sustainable development. This significant data of modern history coincided with the celebration of the 1150th anniversary of a great thinker of East Al-Farabi, which is celebrated under the auspices of Unesco. Reason and happiness are the main objectives of the great scholar's philosophy. Only an intelligent person can comprehend happiness and make everyone around him happy. Back in 2017, Al-Farabi KAZNU, as a global hub for sustainability, initiated a joint project with the United Nations Alliance of Civilizations, formation of citizens of a virtuous society, mission of modern universities. Al-Farabi's remarkable legacy became the basis of this project. It was presented during the International Conference on Global Citizenship in 2018 at the UN headquarters in New York. This conference contributed to the promotion of capacity building for intercivilizational interaction at the academic level in terms of forming world citizens. Therefore, United Network of Universities and the global hubs are invited to participate to these conferences. Al-Farabi's teaching are of colossal spiritual value and are especially relevant today and the sound with all the United Nations initiatives and the programs aimed at preserving the peace and the well-being of humankind. In this address of the world community at the 75th session of the United Nations General Assembly, the President of Kazakhstan, Kassym-Jomart Tokayev, noted the new threats and the challenges of the modern world and at the same time urged all our efforts should be guided by the moral imperative, all for the sake of people. Now, please allow me, from the entire team of thousands of professors and the students, express our gratitude to all our partners for your contribution and their commitment. Today, conference participants also the UNI network of universities, the use of New Silk Way Model UN, students of the MDP Global Classroom on Sustainability, and many others. Now, let me kindly introduce with the agenda of the day. We will be starting with the opening ceremony for duration about 40 minutes. Then the plenary sessions will be opened for 40 minutes. And after all the discussions and the closing remarks will be taken about also 50 minutes. Let me start our conference with the video message from United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres to the world community on occasion of the United Nations anniversary. Could I ask, oh, yes.
Dear friends, the 75th anniversary of the United Nations falls in the middle of a global pandemic. Our founding mission is more critical than ever: to promote human dignity, protect human rights, respect international law, and save humanity from war. When the pandemic hit, I called for a global ceasefire. In our world today, we have one common enemy, COVID-19. Now is the time for a stepped-up push for peace to achieve a global ceasefire. The clock is ticking. And we must also make peace with our planet. The climate emergency threatens life itself. We must mobilize the whole world to reach carbon neutrality, net zero emissions of greenhouse gases by 2050. A growing number of cities, countries and companies have already pledged to meet this goal. Around the world, we must do more to end human suffering from poverty, inequality, hunger and hatred, and fight discrimination on the basis of race, religion, gender, or any other distinction. The months of pandemic have seen a horrific rise in violence against women and girls. We must build on progress. A remarkable global collaboration is underway for a safe, affordable, and accessible COVID-19 vaccine for all. The Sustainable Development Goals give us an inspiring blueprint for recovering better. We face colossal challenges. With global solidarity and cooperation, we can overcome them. That's what the United Nations is all about. On this anniversary, I ask people everywhere to join together. The United Nations not only stands with you, the United Nations belongs to you and is you with the peoples. Together, let us uphold the enduring values of the United Nations Charter. Let us build on our advances across the decades. Let us realize our shared vision of a better world for all.
I think everybody is fully support these words that during the colossal challenges, only joint efforts may realize our shared vision on common future. Ladies and gentlemen, to open our conference, let me give the floor to the Vice Minister of the Foreign Affairs of Kazakhstan, to Yerjan Ashikbayev. Please, the floor is yours, Yerjan.
Thank you. dear Director, dear ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Kazakhstan, we're happy to welcome you at this conference, and we're happy to welcome all the participants of this international conference, Mindful Peace. Today's National University, Al-Farabi National University, as well as the United Nations Alliance of Civilizations and other organizations who participated to and contributed to organizing of this organization. So their speeches are all very timely. Today, as you know, we have been celebrating 150th anniversary of Al-Farabi and 175th anniversary of Abai. And all the thinkers, they have started the Al-Farabi, and they have concluded that the main idea of Al-Farabi's teachings leads to solidarity and unity of the nation. The legacy of Al-Farabi says that it is the virtuous community, virtuous people that can build a virtuous city who will be helping each other. Both Abai and Al-Farabi has left us a legacy of creativity, a legacy of thinking. It was all served as foundation for the initiative of the President of Kazakhstan, as the Kazakhstan being the state that listens. Well, dear ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I'd like to thank the organizers of today's conference and congratulate everyone with the upcoming 75th anniversary of the United Nations Organization, which the whole civilized world will be celebrating tomorrow. The task of preserving the rich cultural legacy of our country is a priority for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs work. Strengthening of attention to this issue was expressed at the presentation and the speech at the General Assembly 75th anniversary. Earlier, on the 15th of October 2020, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Central Asian states and Russia made a statement about the strategic development, strategic aims and vectors of collaboration, and they spoke about the decade of coherence of cultures and histories that was supported by the United Nations, and whose aim is to support the cultural diversity, to support and complement each other, and to help each other in studying the cultural and ethnographic legacies of the countries. One of the priority tasks of the modern stage of the international relations is prevention of polarization of the world by civilization traits and features. Our country has a long-standing history of interconfessional and inter-ethnic accord. That is why we denounce the persecution of believers, insult of their feelings, and any discrimination on the grounds of religion. We believe that in order to develop this kind of collaboration, we have the United Nations to hold that kind of collaboration. The United Nations suit that role the best, given its character, its opportunities, and its chance to develop a multilateral dialogue through engagement of the representative of the state, civil society, culture, religions, and mass media. The 75th anniversary was another proof to that capability of the United Nations.
To this conference, Kazakhstan fully supports discussion of issues of inter-religious, intercultural, as well as inter-civilizational dialogue on the platform of the United Nations General Assembly, as well as in the framework of the Alliance of Civilizations. Kazakhstan was one of the founding members of the Alliance, and in the past 16 years has been actively contributing to the noble causes of the Alliance. In this context, we believe it is of utmost importance to make sure the Alliance of Civilizations, together with other United Nations organizations, are duly represented and participate in the work of the Congresses of Leaders of World and Traditional Religions, the 7th meeting of which is scheduled to be held in Nur-Sultan in 2022. The Foreign Minister of Kazakhstan is actively cooperating with educational institutions, and overall with civil society representatives within the United Nations. We also are eager to facilitate the increased representation of Kazakh NGOs and academia in the work of UN bodies. Once again, I would like to reiterate the Kazakhstan's firm commitment to the formulation of culture of peace as one of the main instruments of conflict prevention and maintaining international cooperation for the cause of peace, development, and human rights. I thank you for your attention, and I wish the success to the conference participants, and I wish happy 75th anniversary to the United Nations. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Minister Yerzhan Ashikbayev, for your very informative information concerning the policy of our country at the United Nations activity. And the next floor, I would like to give hold with a video message to the UN Under-Secretary General and the Special Advisor of the Secretary General on UN 75, His Excellency, Mr. Fabrizio Hochschild-Drummond.
Warm greetings to you from the United Nations headquarters in New York. My name is Fabrizio Hochschild, and I'm the Special Advisor serving the Secretary General this year to lead the unique initiative with which he wanted to mark the 75th anniversary of the United Nations. It's a pleasure with me to be with you today. I had the honor to visit Kazakhstan at the beginning of this year, and I still have many warm and nurturing memories of the days I was able to spend in your wonderful country. The 75th anniversary we're marking at a unique time in history. We have this pandemic, a tiny microbial bacteria that has brought the whole world, the mightiest of nations, to its knees. And this microbe has reminded us just how interconnected and interdependent we are. And it's also exacerbated and brought to the fore many pre-existing challenges, global inequalities. The pandemic has not hit all equally. In many parts of the world, populations that were already marginalized or discriminated against have been much harder hit. People who don't have access to digital technologies and hence the ability to continue schooling their children or continue with their jobs are also harder hit. And although one would think that this pandemic would bring the world closer together, we've also seen how it's exacerbated rivalry and rhetoric of confrontational rhetoric between the superpowers. And it's added to the burden of global challenges the world faced. And I'm thinking in particular of climate change and the destruction we've wrought over the past 50 years to our environment. And it's against this backdrop of a growing number of truly global challenges and receding will for global cooperation that the Secretary General already last year chose a very unique way to mark the 75th anniversary. And he sought to go back to peoples across the world, especially young people like you, to hear from them what they saw as their priorities for the world 25 years from now, what they see as the biggest threats to the realization of their priorities, and what their expectation is of international cooperation. And by listening again to peoples across the world, also on priorities for post-COVID recovery, we hope to find new inspiration, new strength to revitalize international cooperation. We've conducted UN 75 dialogues in well over 80 countries. We've surveyed well over 1 million people in all 193 member states. We've undertaken independent surveys, and we've done AI analysis around these questions about people's hopes and fears for their future, their priorities for post-COVID recovery, and their expectations of international cooperation. And what we found is the world is remarkably united in their hopes and their fears, and remarkably united in their expectations of international cooperation. People want to see better access to basic services like affordable healthcare, like quality education, like clean water and sanitation. People want to see better solidarity with the most affected communities and the most affected countries. People want to see economies that do not make some people super rich while leaving another group of people far behind. They want to see more inclusive economies. And with regard to the long term, the overriding concern everywhere is the destruction we're doing to our climate, to our environment. And people have very high expectations of international cooperation. People want to see it revitalized, but they also want to see better, more inclusive, more effective international cooperation. So we have a lot to do, and these findings will feed into very concrete proposals that the Secretary General is drawing up on how to innovate and renovate international cooperation. But we need you, we need your voices to continue to contribute to push for change. So please join our initiative. Help us, help us. You are the United Nations. The United Nations is not some alien body. You are part of it. So be the change we seek. And let me just say by concluding, I was very struck giving this talk that while we are marking our 75th anniversary, one of the most famous Kazakh citizens, Nasser Al-Farabi, you're commemorating 1,150 years since his birth. And of course, that makes our 75 years very modest in comparison. But in reading more about him, I was struck, and I'd like to think that if he lived still today, he would work for the United Nations or certainly guide us. This was a man who was a bridge between worlds, who was one of the first scientists ever who worked on the basis of science and facts, and who translated thought from one part of the world and brought it to another. He took the wisdom of the ancient Greek philosophers and brought it into the Muslim world. And that's exactly what we need today, those bridge builders. And Kazakhstan has a distinguished history of building bridges, and we need more of that today. There's plenty of confrontation. But if we're to secure a better future for you, for your children, and for those who come after us, we need to re-find our way to unity.
Thank you so much for your wonderful presentation, and we are very happy that ideas of Al-Farabi are living now today. It's become to be very important for real society. And thank you for your words addressed to the youth, because youth is responsible for the future. In this, let me continue our conference. In this special year, we are celebrating also 15th anniversary of the United Nations Alliance of Civilizations. Under Secretary General, High Representative for United Nations Alliance of Science, His Excellency, Mr. Miguel Angel Moratinos, due to the time zone difference, he also sent us a video message.
Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, my dear friends. It is my great pleasure and honor to participate in this special occasion dedicated to the 1150th anniversary of the great thinker Al-Farabi. It is no coincidence that your esteemed university is named after this unique philosopher, who was a bridge builder between civilizations. Al-Farabi University has embraced the legacy of this great humanist by advocating for global citizenship. The United Nations Alliance of Civilization, UNOSC, is also very proud of its partnership with your esteemed university and the shared values we continue to promote together. Al-Farabi was fascinated by human perfection. Man was the center of the universe, and only an intelligent man can understand happiness. His influence and teaching have closed many gaps and eliminated many misunderstandings between civilizations. After his passing and through the Middle Ages, Al-Farabi's teaching influenced the minds of Arab leaders throughout the Muslim world, both on the meaning of life and on the future of mankind. Therefore, his teaching and influence have contributed to a genuine philosophical rapprochement and mutual understanding between civilizations, which lasted until modern time. So we have to retain that over the centuries, his work has symbolized the most valued humanistic quality of love, mutual understanding, and respect of the other, no matter what belief or color. Knowledge without a moral beginning, can bring harm, not good. This quote from the great philosopher Al-Farabi is the essence on which global citizenship education programs all over the world can lean on. We all continue to be inspired by this great thinker, influencer of this time and beyond, especially today, as the world is in turmoil due to the pandemic. COVID-19 has brought unprecedented educational disruption, with 1.2 billion students and youth across the planet affected by school closure. This figure amounts to almost 60% of the world's student population. And amid this pandemic, global citizenship education is even more relevant than before, as we see a surge in stigma, polarization, racism, and hate speech against vulnerable communities. While traditional education remains vital by focusing on improving literacy and facilitating the transmission of knowledge and skill from one generation to the next, there is, my dear friend, a growing need for transformative education, such as global citizenship education, which nurtures shared values and respect for diversity. UNOSC, United Nations Alliance of Civilization, is committed to achieving the goals of global education, particularly since education and youth are two of the four pillars of our programming. For UNOSC, education is a vital component of developing tomorrow's leaders. Concluding, I salute the great Islamic thinker Al-Farabi and all the partners who have gathered today to celebrate his wisdom and knowledge. Thank you very much from New York.
Very much for your video message and taking part at the organizing of this conference, and especially when we are also highlighting the celebration of anniversary of your organization. And of course, we are very proud that we initiated together with UN Alliance of Civilizations the formation of citizens of the virtual society. And we are actively working and we are involving our many universities to join to that program. The next highly appreciated and distinguished participants is the director of the United Nations Academic Impact Program, Mr. Ramu Damadaran, who supports the whole academic community with a greater perception of being a global citizens. Please, dear Mr. Ramu Damadaran, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Vice Rector, Professor Bulketbayev, Rector Mutanov. It is wonderful to see you again. And of course, my good friend Aisha and all of you here. Thank you and greetings. And what a confluence of anniversaries this is, starting with the 1150th anniversary of Al-Farabi, going down to your contemporary anniversaries, which you are observing today in the midst of this International Decade for Sustainable Development. We are very proud at the United Nations of our association with Kazakh National Al-Farabi University, which has been so nurtured by both the rector and the vice rector and many individual professors. And we are particularly proud that the theme or the focus of that cooperation is sustainability. Because the theme you've chosen for this conference, Mind for Peace, is really about that. It's about sustainability, because peace cannot be sustainable unless you bring the power of the human mind to it. Al-Farabi had many qualities. He was a thinker, he was a philosopher, he was a musician, and he was a physicist. And as a physicist, the one point of research that he undertook was that of a vacuum. How do you deal with a vacuum? And I think that brings us back to 75 years ago today, on the eve of the creation and emergence of the United Nations, because we had a vacuum in the global community. And to take another phrase of Al-Farabi, a state which is built by love must continue with justice. So too it is about the United Nations. It was built on the premise of love between peoples, love of peoples for each other and for the ideals of a united world. But as the United Nations grew, the imperative became to go beyond love, as Al-Farabi said, to justice. And that is what sustainability is all about. I also want to share with you one of the unfortunate features of the United Nations today, which is that so many ideas are put forward by rich minds, but not all of these ideas can really be translated, either because events overtake us or because we don't have the resources for them. But having said that, I hope that the mind will continue to provide those ideas. Let me give you a few examples from Kazakhstan itself. Speaking at the General Assembly this year by video conference, His Excellency President Tokayev made a number of proposals which really came from the intellect of the human mind. He talked about the pandemic we are in now and said, should we not have an international agency for biological safety? That is Mind for Peace. He talked about the National Year for Volunteers in Kazakhstan and said, should we not have an international year of volunteers for development? That is Mind for Peace. He talked about the Islamic Organization for Food Security, convened by Kazakhstan, and said, should this not be the precursor for an international organization on food security, even as we prepare for the World Food Safety Summit next year? That is Mind for Peace. And he talked about the Conference for Interaction and Confidence Building in Asia, and thought of that as a model for something more global, more universal. That is Mind for Peace. And you bring it from that level, from the level of the presidency of this great country, to the vibrant campus where you are on, and I've had the privilege to be. And I think of a young man called Saul Torokul. Saul Torokul devised an app, a COVID tracker at Al-Farabi University, which allows every individual in Kazakh and Russian and eventually in other languages as well to trace what her or his potential risk for COVID is. That is Mind for Peace. Professor Motanov has made a career in so many distinguished aspects of the sciences, but the one area where I know he has distinguished himself is that of risk management. And today, we need that more than ever because the risks we face as a species, as a planet, challenge the very premise on which the United Nations is founded. That phrase in its charter about the dignity and worth of the human person. If that dignity is put at risk, if that worth is put at risk, we are doomed as a species, even before we are overtaken by the virus. And that is why we need minds. That is why we need peace. And that is why the United Nations is grateful to institutions like Al-Farabi Kazakh National University and to the minds of men and women like Al-Farabi himself, who have shown us that the future is possible. Thank you.
Yeah, Ramuda Madaran, thank you very much for your very clear description of the means of mind for peace in action. It's very great. It's very great, and I think every participant can understand what it means, mind for peace. And we may extend our highest appreciation for your support to the whole academic community for giving a chance to enhance the role of higher education in taking global actions. And we will use that mind for peace in all our actions in the future. In continuance of welcoming speech, let me give the floor to the Director of UNESCO Cluster Office for Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, and Uzbekistan, Ms. Krista Pickett. We are in a good cooperation with UNESCO office. Please, Krista, floor yours.
Kep Rahmet, Vice Rector, Honorable Minister, Honorable Rector, distinguished delegates, I'm very honored and happy to participate in today's meeting on behalf of UNESCO. As the United Nations Specialized Agency for Education, Sciences, Culture and Communication and Information, UNESCO, of course, is part of the United Nations system, which celebrates its 75th anniversary in 2020 and actually tomorrow. So let me also congratulate everybody on this anniversary. As you may know, the UN 75 initiative that was launched in the framework of the anniversary celebrations seeks to promote dialogue and action on how we can build a better world despite the many challenges that we face today. This dialogue places special emphasis on youth and those whose voices are too often marginalized or not heard in global affairs. As such, I feel that our meeting today also contributes to this dialogue and to this reflection on how to build a better, a more peaceful, stable and sustainable future. UNESCO is pleased to be associated with the celebration of the 1150th anniversary of the birth of Abu Nasr al-Farabi, Al-Farabi, a famous scholar and philosopher from Kazakhstan. This celebration was included in the list of anniversaries with which UNESCO is associated in 2020-2021, jointly by Kazakhstan, the Islamic Republic of Iran, and with the support of Iraq, Russian Federation, and Turkey. Al-Farabi's teaching resonates strongly with UNESCO's mandate. which, as you may know, starts with the famous words, build peace in the minds of men and women. Given that Al-Farabi recognized that human mind has the greatest potential to build an ideal society, especially through education, this prominent thinker and philosopher considered education as the most important social phenomena because it is the acquisition of values and knowledge and practical skills by individuals which help them become a member of the society. Sustainable development is based on similar principles, skills and competencies that are needed for individuals to live in a just and peaceful societies. Global citizenship education is also at the heart of UNESCO's response to today's global challenges, including human rights violations, inequality and poverty that threaten peace and sustainability. It works by empowering learners of all ages to recognize the global nature of these challenges and to become active promoters of more peaceful, tolerant, inclusive, secure, and sustainable societies. Global citizenship education is a very strategic and important area of UNESCO's education program, which builds on the framework of peace and human rights education. It aims to instill in learners the necessary values, attitudes, and behaviors that support responsible global citizenship, such as creativity, innovation, commitment to peace, human rights, and sustainable development. And our work in this area is grounded in our Constitution, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the Education 2030 Agenda, and notably Target 4.7 of the Sustainable Development Agenda. As Al-Farabi put it, knowledge without morality becomes a threat to humanity. This is also the core notion of global citizenship education. Therefore, education systems, including all educational institutions and universities, are ideal hubs for instilling these 21st century skills that are necessary not only for preparing the future leaders, but also each member of the society to be ready to take responsible action and decisions for sustainable development. The leadership of the Kazakh National University in Kazakhstan is crucial in this regard. As a United Nations agency with a mandate in the field of education and in our capacity as a coordinator of the SDG 4, UNESCO calls on all education stakeholders to mainstream these values, attitudes, and behaviors that support responsible global citizenship among learners in line with the teachings of Al-Farabi. So I should like to thank the organizers of this important meeting and wish the participants meaningful exchanges. Thank you very much for your attention. Köp rahmet.
Thank you very much, Krista Pickett, and thank you for your cooperation with our university. A lot of roundtables and conferences have been done with the personal youth participation. And we do hope that such kind of activities will be in the future more and more. The next distinguished participant is one who fully supports our youth by inspiring them to act as future leaders and to be responsible for a common future in promotion of human dignity. The representative of the United Nations Department of Global Communications in Kazakhstan, Mr. Vlastimil Samak. Dear Vlastimil, the floor is yours.
Үлкен рахмет, Мукаш Музабаевич, құрметті ханымдар мен мырзалар,
Dear ladies and
құрметті
gentlemen,
достар,
dear friends,
добрый
hello,
день, вечер, утро,
or evening or morning, depending on where you are,
коллеги, друзья,
colleagues and friends.
Excellency, Mr. Director of the Al-Farabi Kazakh National University, Your Excellency, Deputy Foreign Minister Yerzhan Ashikbayev, Excellencies, colleagues, friends, representatives of academia. Great pleasure and honor to be here today with you, because I think our participation in this online conference is already kind of demonstrating our support to the theme of the conference, Mind for Peace, saying that we do mind about peace. And I'm grateful to all the participants who have already expressed their views, how accurately they have interconnected the thoughts of great thinker Abu Nasr Al-Farabi and the present times in respect of the intentions to achieve peaceful and sustainable development of our world. Indeed, it's very important that when we talk about the sustainable development, we also talk about the inclusiveness and, logically, the fact that no one should be left behind. In this respect, the universal international organization, United Nations, I think, is fulfilling its mandate and celebrating the 75th anniversary without the world experiencing any major global war is an evidence that the organization is delivering to the extent possible. Indeed, throughout the decades, centuries, humankind has always been challenged by pandemics, by wars, but always that was about the human minds that actually worked together to overcome these troubled moments and to move forward. And I think this is a message that came from the old times of Al-Farabi throughout the centuries and is reaching out to us today, just to remind us that our present world is facing a new challenges, but we also have the ways how to address them. And we have the young people who are actually the future chariots of fire to guarantee that our world will be developing peacefully, successfully, and sustainably. Thank you very much. Большое спасибо. Ulken Rahmet.
Thank you very much, Vladimir Samek. So tomorrow we will meet again, because the new conference also dedicated to 75th anniversary of United Nations will be held. It's a new Silk Way model, United Nations model, new Silk Way. And we are waiting you at that conference also. So thank you to all our guests. There were remarkable message brought to the agenda. Now we shall be starting the plenary sessions. I would like to ask our distinguished participants turn to the plenary session and wishing a successful discussion. The first speaker of our plenary session is Dr. Bekir Karlıga. He is a former advisor of the Prime Minister of Turkey, coordinator of United Nations Alliance of Civilization in Turkey, and found one very international center. And Dr. Bekir Karlıga, the floor is yours.
Bekir Bey.
Sese bakıyoruz.
Bekir Bey sizin mikrofonunuz. Aha. Şimdi
Açıldı mı
çalışıyor.
şimdi? Teşekkür ediyorum.
Thank you. Thank you, dear Rector, Vice Rector, all of the participants of this conference.
Farabi'nin doğumunun 1150. yılı olarak ilan edilmesi, aynı zamanda Birleşmiş Milletler'in kuruluşunun 75. yılının anılması konusunda
I'm happy to be attending this event devoted to 1105th anniversary of the great Turkish Islamic philosopher, as well as the 75th anniversary of the United Nations. This is, I believe, is a great, important event for the whole world, because today the world, just right now, is aspiring to peace and cohesion. To this end, Mr. President, His Excellency, Mr. President Tokayev address, as well as the conference that was organized by this rector. So we've been discussing and we've been working to promote the legacy of Al-Farabi for 5 to 6 years. I know that certain articles have been pieced, certain monographies and certain books have been made. We have also organized a number of conferences, a number of meetings to discuss his work and to discuss his legacy. Farabi is not a thinker just for Turks or for Muslims. It is the greatest thinker for the whole mankind. He was the thinker that offered his thinking or teaching to everyone. Let us go through the most important teachings or notions. First of all, he was the civilization thinker. In all of his works, he spoke about the mankind's aspirations to be happy, and he described all the prerequisites for a man to be happy. He explained all of that. He was the philosopher. He was able to deliver all of his thoughts to us. As you know, he wrote 3 different books that has the word civilization. The Virtuous City, Civilized Politics, and Civilization Topics. Al-Farabi, he was a significant figure, significant thinker for Muslims, for Christians, and for Jews. And what he thought was universal for all, and that is the person's and a man's happiness. His thoughts were very valuable and were taught to youth, and I think it's important that they are passed to the next generations as well. In Kazakhstan, the university that has the name of Al-Farabi, and that's not by accident, it's deserved.
Erdemli medeniyet görüşü bugün
the problems that
çok daha büyük bir anlam taşımaktadır. Çünkü birey içinden yetiştiği
the works and the writings of Al-Farabi are very relevant to the modern times.
rahat bir çevrede, huzurlu bir çevrede, mutlu bir çevrede yetişmesi onun gelecekte insanlık
And
canlılığına
his life
önemli etkileri vardır.
was dedicated, in fact, to explaining man's life and happiness. And he said that it depends on the surroundings, and that's why everyone must be happy. He spoke about the virtuous city and how that virtuous city can be achieved. And he believed that the mayor of a virtuous city has to be virtuous as well.
aktarmıştır. Bu bakımdan bu 1150.
So he
yıl
delivered his thoughts about civilization to all of us. At this anniversary of 1105th of Al-Farabi, and I'm very thankful and would like to congratulate Mr. Rector Mutana for celebrating Al-Farabi and for delivering his thoughts, for making Al-Farabi known by the citizens and peoples of the world. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bekir Karuta, for all your
Ses
great
geldi mi?
contribution for studying the treatise of Al-Farabi. You did a lot of for connection our mind in that issue, in that field. And I would like to suggest, if someone have a question, if your audience have a question, please type it in the chat. Then we will be reading and answering. The next speaker is Professor Fatima Godamilas, Vice Rector of International Relations of the Castilla-La Mancha University. So floor yours, Fatima Godamilas. Anlattım.
Your microphone is muted. Please unmute yourself.
Esperanza, I'm sorry, your microphone is not on. We can't hear you.
Your microphone is switched off.
Yes, will you please switch on your microphone, please?
Could you please switch on your microphone?
Okay, it's okay now?
Okay, now is good.
Okay, thank you. So I begin again. Hola. Dear participants of conference, distinguished guests and colleagues, today I feel honored to share this platform with you, and I would like to extend my highest appreciation to Al-Farabi Kazakh National University for such a remarkable opportunity. The University of Castilla-La Mancha is a modern and dynamic university that is committed to the creation and transformation of science and professional skills based on promoting values such as solidarity, sustainability, efficiency, transparency, and equality. The relationship between our institutions has already exceeded from long-lasting strategic partnership to mutual, reliable friendship. Yet, it might create values unique to each of our countries. We are focused on one common course. Hence, as educational institutions, they nurture tomorrow's leaders, activists, and global citizens. It is vital for all of us to prove our commitment to build a better world with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals through basic agreements between the political, economic, and social powers, and acknowledging the agreements and the necessity of the long-term vision and promotion of sustainability at its broadest sense. Especially now, when the COVID-19 pandemic hits Spain, Europe, and many other countries of the world so dreadfully, we have felt it is an unprecedented waking-up call for realizing the significance of sustainable development goals. It has mobilized all of our national, regional, local administrations our citizens, companies, universities, research centers, and organizations to face the great challenge of our time and protect the well-being of our nation. It is a great privilege to attend this meeting and to represent Spanish academic society. Spain, along with Turkey, stood at the front floor of the creation of the United Nations Alliance of Civilization back in 2005 at the 59th General Assembly of the United Nations. The United Nations Alliance of Civilizations is an initiative that seeks to galvanize international action to face the challenges and the modern world as fighting extremism, building international, intercultural, and interreligious dialogue and cooperation, diffusing tensions between the Western and Islamic worlds. We fully support the initiative for the United Nations of Global Citizenship. We do believe that as a higher education institution, we should be the first to answer the disturbing call of modernity. As today's conference concise, yet comprehensive name declares, we should, at the best of our ability, mine for peace and cultivate a generation of minds for peace. Thank you so much for your attention. Gracias.
Thank you very much, Fatima Godamilas, and for your being with us and your presentations. We know very well your university because we are cooperating in the frame of several European programs.
Yes, we
and,
do.
I am sure in the future we could design more projects together. Thank you for cooperation.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is a professor of National and Kapodistrian University of Afin, Professor Georgios Steiris. Floor yours. Professor Georgios.
Dear Rector, distinguished professors and guests, I wish to thank the authorities of the Al-Farabi Kazakh National University for inviting me as a guest speaker. Al-Farabi's place in the history of philosophy is seminal, since his work and his activities in the historical lands of Kazakhstan, Iraq, Syria, and Egypt brought together all the great civilizations from the Mediterranean Sea to the Chinese borders. As a result, he was regarded as the greatest philosophical authority after Aristotle. Besides his importance for the history of philosophy, Al-Farabi's ideas are still relevant. Though his philosophy takes some inspiration from Plato and Aristotle, it must transform their views in important and interesting ways to reflect a very different world. I would like to praise the organizers of this forum who took the initiative to promote Al-Farabi's memory and Farabian studies. Albeit being produced in a Muslim environment, Al-Farabi's best-known work, Madina Ara al-Fadila, is informed by the idea of the virtuous city. Madina is a Quranic word and means the city in general and the city of the Prophet in particular. Al-Farabi reversed a strong imperial tendency in political thought during the late antiquity and brought forth polis, the city. Like the ancient Greeks before him, he discusses the ideal polity inseparably from the city. Al-Farabi's Madina signifies the polity, the citizens, and the area, a feature that sets him apart from the Greek tradition. The polis was an existing reality, while the Ummah, conceived of as a group of people who share common beliefs, was a universal term and had no direct political implications, nor was it a political reality. Moreover, Al-Farabi's Madina reflects his understanding of the Greek, Roman, and Persian political traditions and his Platonic readings. Although several scholars had emphasized the Platonic utopian element in his political philosophy, we should bear in mind that polis, besides being an utopia, was also a political reality in the ancient world. The polis flourished among the Greeks, and its legacy in the Christian and Muslim traditions was very important. I suggest that Al-Farabi deliberately distanced himself from the previous Muslim philosophers, such as Al-Kindi, and theologians such as Al-Bakhi, who wrote political advice treatises because he was better acquainted with Platonic philosophy and opted to go beyond the confines of Neoplatonism. As a reader and interpreter of the Platonic Republic, he relied on the Greek concept of polis. He could not have followed a different path. Al-Farabi, following Plato and Aristotle, contends that humans are unable to protect themselves from nature and the hostility of other humans outside an organized society. In addition, they cannot achieve perfection, their ultimate goal, without the aid of their fellow citizens and mutual cooperation taking place within human society. The supreme happiness, a very rare term in Greek philosophy, and theoretical and practical perfection are achievable only in the city and not in smaller political associations. According to Al-Farabi, there are three perfect political associations, depending on their size. Large, the union of all the nations and associations of the inhabited part of the world. Medium, a nation situated in a certain land. And small, the city-state. The smaller societies, such as the village, the neighborhood, the quarter, and the household, are imperfect and inadequate. Although Al-Farabi accepts the validity and utility of political associations that are larger than the city in terms of providing the conditions for human happiness, the core of his political philosophy is the city. Perfection and felicity can only be attained in the perfect city. The excellent nation and the excellent universal state are actually unions of cities. Al-Farabi's ecumenical state remained an utopia, and the nation-state was not an existing reality during his lifetime. The Greek tradition on which he extensively relied offered him the necessary theoretical and empirical background that allowed him to substantiate his ideas about the preponderance of the city as the sum of the citizens and the perfect polity. Al-Farabi seems to approximate the classical conception of the polis as the sum of the citizens when he deliberately chooses the term mamura in order to designate a larger political association, the inhabited world. The term refers to the inhabited part of the world, and Al-Farabi refrains from the use of the terms that signify global dominion or universal rulership. The core of politics is the people and the citizens, not vast uninhabited territories. Al-Farabi does not share the enthusiasm of those kings and emperors who claim that they are masters of seas and deserts. For Al-Farabi, the city is its people and the way they are organized and ruled. Thank
you. Dear Professor Georgios Steiris, in our university, we very well know you as a researcher who investigating the heritage of Al-Farabi. And once when you informed me about your articles at one of the central Greece newspaper, all that information was sent to our researcher, and your articles now, and we use it in our university research field. And I do hope the Al-Farabi give us a lot of items for common collaboration. And anytime we are waiting you in our university to the conferences devoted to Al-Farabi heritage. Thank you so much for your participation to that conference. And the next speaker is the rector of Al-Farabi Kaznu, Professor Galimkair Mutanov. But before giving the floor to Mr. Butanov, I would like to introduce, I would like, okay, the floor is yours.
Құрметті қонақтар мен конференцияға қатысушылар.
And participants of the conference.
Конференцияның тақырыбы
Well, as you know,
бейбітшілікке арналған
the
сана.
name of our conference is the Mind for Peace.
Бүгінгі заман талаптары адамзаттың
The
парасатты ой
demands
сананы
of the
басшылыққа ала отырып,
modernity require that
қандық
we are guided
келіспеушіліктерді еңсеру, коронавирустық инфекцияның салдарын жою, шешімін таппаған саяси шенеуніктер мен
as
басқа
well
да
as the
қауіп-қатерлерді
aspiration
болдырмай,
to diffuse some tensions
әлемнің
and to
бейбітшілік үшін
prevent
бірігуін
different
қажет
threats
етеді.
for the future.
Осындай
It requires
күрделі жағдайда
unification of all the efforts.
ұлы ойшыл ғалым,
Under such difficult
адамзаттың екінші ұстазы
circumstances,
атанған
the great
Абу Насыр
thinker,
Фарабидің сөздері
the second
ерекше
teacher,
өзектілікке
Abu
ие
Nasr
болады.
al-Farabi, his words are particularly relevant.
Адамдар бірлестігі шынайы бақытқа жеткізетін істерде өзара көмектесу мақсатын қойған жағдайда ғана әрбір адам басқа адамның өмір сүруіне қажетті үлес беретін, бір-біріне көмектесетін адамдарды біріктіру арқылы ғана өз табиғатына сай жету дәрежесіне ие болады.
They will help each other and they will turn into a happy state.
Егер халықтар бақытқа жету мақсатымен бір-біріне көмектесіп отырса, бұл ғалам қайырымды.
If people and nations help each other for the sake of achieving happiness, then such people will become virtuous. I think this resonates with the words that have been said by the General Secretary of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres. He said that we know that under current circumstances, we have the Global Institute and we need to use in order to handle different tensions and different conflicts. So here's what he said: either we come together in global institutions that are fit for purpose, or we will be crushed by divisiveness and chaos. Dear guests and participants of the conference, as the great thinkers said, the future of the humanity depends on whether the humanistic achieves and ideals are being achieved on the basis of the creative or civilized mind. That idea is still pretty relevant and very pressing. And while identifying human being as the mindful, then he believed, Al-Farabi manifested his belief in the power of the mind. He believed that mind can serve the ideas of development, creativity, and growth. Mind can overcome war, mind can overcome challenges. For that, because of that, for Al-Farabi, the virtuous citizenship was a priority. To this end, the role of the university becomes crucial because universities now have the mission to form the virtuous citizens, ensuring the sustainable development of the humanity. It is the university environment that has, from the start, the necessary cross-cultural potential, special strategic potential that will help realize the task of educating young people in the spirit of global citizenship. We believe that the supranational role of modern university, on the basis of instilling common human values, will allow to effectively build algorithm of joint actions and play a decisive role in the future development of our society. Regardless of national or religious beliefs and grounds, we will jointly be able to rise above the conflicts and hatred, and we can join forces for peace. During the long time, we have observed an intensive evolution of university format. There was University 1.0 based on education. Universities 2.0 was based on education and research, while Universities 3.0 are now focused on education, research, and knowledge monetization. Today, we speak about the new trend of University 4.0, which is a model that's in demand and that has a lot of promise for model university. University 4.0 highlights its activities as a mission of forming not only professionals, nurturing not only professionals, but also raising the citizens of the world with high moral and civil attitudes, who will take responsibility for the future of the mankind. The reality shows that all the key figures of world politics have their own university degrees. That's a very important circumstance that shall not be ignored, since the humanity depends on intellectual and moral degree of these people. Therefore, universities should become the nucleus the core for formation of not only competent professionals, but also future creators of a virtuous and sustainable world. To this end, I think it's very important to develop a plan that would bring together universities to achieve the next level of development of education and science, the purpose of which is a peaceful, prosperous coexistence of the planet citizens in accordance with the United Nations Global Citizenship Concept. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, our rector, Mutanov. And now I would like to give the floor to our head of international affairs, Dr. Aisha Ismailova.
Thank you very much, dear moderator. And my warm greetings to my colleagues, to our colleagues, to all the colleagues of the university who were in contact all these days preparing for this conference and who are always in contact with our university on different issues and different projects. My special regards to Mr. Ramu Damodaran. Dear Ramu, we are very, very glad to see and to hear you and to know that you are in well condition. Sain Bikir Bey, Merhaba to you as well. And I would also like to add that this conference was also organized with the assistance of our representative office of Kazakhstan in the United Nations that is located in New York City. So Anwar, it's my appreciation to you as well. Well, speaking about this, I would like to make the announcement about our contribution, the contribution of our university to the 75th anniversary of the United Nations. So the professors of our university and the students made a contribution in publishing 2 books. One of them is Smart Cities on the Silk Road, that comprises the international experience on sustainable development of the cities. It's very interesting book. I wonder if you see it. And the second one is just a kind of a collection of everything that was done by Al-Farabi Kazakh National University as global hub of UNI on sustainability. It calls Al-Farabi Kaznu for Shaping Common Future. So it's just the announcement, the newly published book and I hope that all our partners can very soon receive these editions as the example of our contribution to the great dates that we are celebrating these days. So thank you very much. Vice Rector will add something on them.
Concerning the book, I would like to say some words, especially of the book about the smart cities on the Silk Road. We have collected all materials concerning the concepts of smart cities and of sustainable development of cities. And this is not just articles. This is very important for us because we are promoting the CDG goals through education. So we use that book for our teaching purposes at the several faculties. As for second book, Al-Farabi Kaznu for Shaping Common Future, we try to describe all our common activities which have been done together with the United Nations organizations in Kazakhstan in the organization. And it is also very important. We collect the speeches of our distinguished guests from United Nations. So we have a lot of photos, and I do hope that every reader found it very interesting. So we, of course, every year this book will be much more because we are going to add all kinds of events. And at today's conference, we also, in the second issue of that book, we will add. Thank you so much. So, dear participants, now we have finished the agenda of today's meeting. And if you have some questions or comments, you're welcome. So, please. We couldn't see nobody who would like to take part at the discussion or questions. So in that purposes, let me give our appreciation to all the participants, all the presenters, and we are very proud that we have organized such very important event together with our friends and from United Nations and universities. Under the hope such kind events will be in the future. During this conference, we understand how is very important to use mind before action. And that word mind is connect together the heritage of Al-Farabi and the activity of United Nations at the recent age. So if you do not have any questions, let me close that conference and let you and wish you success and happiness. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Rector. Thank you. Bye. Bye, Jean. Thank you.